Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I am Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security and the attorney at Joy Disability. You're about to see what should be a question and answer format type of chat from our live session on a particular topic that we find that a lot of people keep asking about. So I'm sharing it here. If there are pieces that could have been added that weren't added during the live, because there's a kind of a fast-paced Q&A that we do every Wednesday at 1 p.m. You might just find that I added something to the end of it to give it a little more clarity and a little more details for those that are interested in that particular topic. So check to see if that's at the end. Otherwise, enjoy the video. Bye-bye. Can an adjudicator issue a partial decision, or will they just deny and leave it to a judge if there is a conflict with Onset? No, they can. Absolutely, they can. All the time. It happens all the time. In fact, I think Jonathan and I were talking about it recently. Well, we've talked about it numerous times, actually, when we've been together doing these live streams. And it can be very disappointing to someone who's just filed when they're like, I've been disabled for 3 years, and they gave me like 8 months ago. So I get a whopping 3 months of back benefits, even though I haven't been able to work for 3 years. And that can be disappointing. And then the temptation there is to appeal it based on the onset, which is a very tricky question. You want to look at closely before just being trigger happy appeal for it. You want to make sure you have the goods. Probably if you're pro se, I would say speak to a lawyer about it so they can at least review some of the technicals that will describe whether there are some more risky things to think about. Because the end line is when you appeal an onset, so say on initial or recon 33, you open up the whole thing for a whole new determination. They can completely say, actually not disabled at all. So yeah, it can be risky. Sometimes it's far less risk and almost no risk. And that's those technicalities I was talking about. It often has to do with the vocational profile, what was the age and all that. And also, or what is the age now? The DLI, of course, is really important. And was there a particular, you want to look in the DDE, I would say. What was the basis on which they picked that date? You know what I mean? Were they pointing to an MRI that finally showed cord impingement? Or was it something, was there something? If there is none, a lot of the times they will do it on the person did change the age category and they zap it to that. It's very frustrating when they do that. But it's the kind of thing where you're like, what's the chance of flipping them on that? So then the person has to decide, let's say the risk of it being overturned is really slim, but do they want to be doing this for another 2 years? Sometimes the having to be anal about your treatment. Now not that you're not a little anal after you win, but it is definitely not the same. I think y'all can probably attest to that, and particularly people, if anyone's in here who has prevailed, and we usually have some of our, not my winners necessarily, but people who have prevailed and they come and they tell us about it, people that are kind of regular here. So it can really depend. But anyway, you definitely want to review it with a fine-tooth comb. Sometimes I feel like they always, the age change gives them an excuse to award, but they're saving all this money. So, it's all that kind of, negativity part attached to it. Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Let's talk about physical therapy and what those records can do for your case. I bring this up because, as some of you might know, I am a huge fan of physical therapy records. I know physical therapy is kind of a nightmare sometimes for people to go to. Some physical therapists are better than others, but I do find that the vast majority of the time, the records can be really, really telling. And the beauty of them is that you get 12, 18, 24, 36 sessions, separate days of observation by a professional with notes as to specifically your functioning, your strength, your pain level upon activity. It can be really valuable. And to get that amount of professional observation of you put into a medical record, if it was your specialist doing it, the orthopedist that referred you to the PT, how long would it take to get 36 appointments? Couple decades, maybe. Do you know what I'm saying? So PT could be a wonderful way of filling in a gap, adding to what the orthopedist, or it could be a neurologist, or it could be a primary care. But me, I'm all about having all of the above. If you can feasibly get it, I think it makes for a stronger case, a better credentialed medical provider in the specific area that you have a problem with, orthopedics, for instance, is, as I see it, of more weight than a family doctor or general practitioner. But they too are very valuable and necessary. So this came up because a wonderful viewer, thank you, Tyler, said, what did he say? I always invite people to, ask questions or throw in comments on any video they're watching. If a comment comes to their head about something else, Social Security, disability, or evidence related, or anything Social Security related, just so they don't forget it and they can get it in there, because I do get to all the comments. Not always the same day. Sometimes if they suddenly are hidden from me, I might not see them for a week. But so this one was actually found on a mental health video, but the person wanted me to make a video explaining why going to physical therapy hurts your claim. And of course, I couldn't do that, right? So his point was, and so I wanted to explain it after he learned that I love PT records, because we were interacting on the post, on the comment section. And he said, but you lose disability if you improve. So if physical therapy serves its purpose, you'll lose your benefits. That is really not true in reality. I've never seen improvement from physical therapy for someone who's disabled cause them to lose their benefits or lose their camp claim. So let me explain further. I did give him a little blurb in the typed format on the comment section with him, but I wanted to share it to the rest of you. Physical therapy is supposed to get you to improve, and hopefully it will. Most people, well, I will say the people whose cases I take are disabled with impairments that I already know are not subject to improving enough to go back to work full time. It's after a complete analysis, of course. If you just were in an accident and you have some whiplash and you're going to go get physical therapy and you're not disabled from all 12,000 jobs for at least 12 months, of course you're not going to win your case. But it's not because of the physical therapy. It's because you're not meeting the standard of definition required to get paid cash benefits under the SSD program or the SSI program. All right. So, of course, we hope PT causes improvement. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people have to actually quit because it's hurting and it's not helping. Sometimes the referring doctor will pull them back from it, or they will complain to him and then he will do that. And some people just quit on their own. I don't recommend that way, but I do understand it if it's causing great pain, except that if you have not been communicating that pain well at the time to the physical therapist, then it's going to be your claim and nothing else. And knowing that people really abhor sometimes going to physical therapy, it's inconvenient, it doesn't feel good. Sometimes the physical therapist isn't really doing much on you and you're doing it all, and you really just want to have a better coach than that. But so if that happens, you definitely want to speak to the issue with your doctor and have them officially cancel your PT is my recommendation. That being said, let's move on about this whole issue about when it could hurt you. If your PT renders you so improved that you can go back to work, assuming you were previously not in that vein of that likely happening, then isn't that a great thing? I mean, if you can have a far greater quality of life, far greater improvement, and go back to work, I mean, that is the goal, isn't it, of everybody, to be a healthier, viable, quality of life, self-sufficient contributor to one's own needs of sustaining themselves, right? And their families, of course. In experience, physical therapy records are great for what they provide. When someone is truly with a permanent type of impairment, they can help him feel better. Sometimes it's something they have to do periodically, but rarely do I see in a case that's truly disabled, if ever have I seen physical therapy do the job of making them improved enough to be able to do a job that they are held accountable for doing under the Social Security disability rules. And what jobs that entails will depend on if they're over 50 and under 50, whether or not they have some of the applicable medical vocational rules that they can rely on also, because that does carve out a whole section of jobs irrespective of some of that improvement. Remember, mere improvement doesn't mean you can go back and do all those jobs that you're held accountable for. It just means you're improved somewhat. Sometimes it'll be a 5% improvement. That doesn't mean that puts in any jobs, right? So I stand by it, guys. Physical therapy records are really, really helpful. And I have people that have, they've had some physical therapy on their lumbar. They've also had physical therapy separately, sometimes at the same time, but on different days. It's kind of weird, but sometimes it's like a 3-month course of lumbar, and then 3 months later, they start one for cervical because they have these really kind of up and down problems with their spine, as confirmed by their specialists. The records are invaluable. Not only do they show that you're still having a problem, Whereas if you had that whole 6 months or 8 months without a doctor visit, because the doctor only gives you an appointment every 8 months, say the orthopedist, then what are you going to have in between to show that it still continues? You're going to have nothing. So I suggest you consider physical therapy in a positive light from a legal perspective. Obviously, it's positive, generally speaking, from a medical perspective, but I'm talking only legal here because that's the only kind of expertise I have. So I'll leave the medical findings to the medical experts. So thank you again, Tyler, for bringing that up, because I'm always babbling about physical therapy. You should see my clients. They roll their eyes at me. I think they are anyway. I don't really see them. I just message with them, and I could feel the verbal. Every time I nag them about physical therapy, it might be my paranoia, but I sense a little eye roll, like, here she goes again. But anyway, it's my job, so I keep on my people. Anyway, you guys, I don't know when this is coming out. We are heading into Christmas, and I hope you are all having a wonderful Christmas season. And if I don't know, if you get this after the New Year, I hope your New Year is going to be fabulous and all good things for all of you. God bless.